Namaste. Welcome to everyone on our new edition of Navima's podcast. So today again, yeah, just let me check. Yes, yes, namaste, namaste. I was getting something else. Yes, so namaste everyone for this new podcast. A very a special topic that we had a lot think about it, and said let's do it. So as you can see from the thumbnail and the title of the podcast is the UK grooming gangs, and and we have all seen in the media how the horrific incidents have taken place in UK, and especially across Europe as well, in Netherlands and many other regions. Not as bad as in UK, but UK is really bad. So we want to draw a parallel in the historical writings of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, what he thought when the partition of India happened, and what were his views on the relationship between the Hindus and the Muslims, and the way the partition took place, and the events leading to the partition. Okay. And one question that we will actually draw uh, from our discussion, from the reading the book, can the way partition took place in 1947, can it be different? And if it was a different, will will that would have made any difference the way we live in India and Pakistan? Now we see after 5th August, especially 5th August, the state of Hindus of Bangladesh, and we have seen from 1947 onwards the state of perpetual persecution faced by the Hindus of Pakistan, and the way it has been taking place over 50 years of more than 50 years. So can Baba Sahib Ambedkar, when his ideas, his thoughts were taken into account, could have made a difference to millions of Hindus who are now suffering today in Bangladesh and Pakistan, could have been changed. So we'll give a few minutes for the audience to come on, okay? And I'll also be prep the PDF to be read. But do share your comments, what you expect from this reading on this specific issue. We'll delve deep into a few more aspects of it, but we'll initially just read the book. So, and for people who are curious why I have this book in front of me, okay. So this book name is Thermonomics, okay, by Sri Ram Balasubramaniam. Okay. So as we all know that we are having Mahakumbh, the 12th Kumbh in the 144-year cycle, and it is predicted that in terms of number of people, we would have 40 crore or 400 million people visit the holy city of Prayagraj, and the money that would be generated, economics, artha, will be generated, would be in about $20 billion or more. Okay, and in terms of economy, it would be adding few more billions in the economy itself, and it would lead to a lot of employment generation, money being given, and new infra being built in the city, which will actually help the city in long run. So on that theme, that's why I thought let's put that book. So this book is Thermonomics. Okay. So this talks about with the context of Arthashastra. Okay, and this is actually signed copy I got. So thanks to Padega India, I got the signed copy from the author. So this book talks about the indigenous sustainable economic. So we have seen the model of capitalism, which is the Western model. So we do have our own model in terms of how the economies function. So we can learn something from Chanakya and Arthashastra, how the economies and capital economies were structured in the ancient times. So we will read this book in future. But I thought in the occasion of Mahakumbh happening, and there's a lot of talk about the economics, the Sanatana economy. So this book is a very relevant book in that context. Now coming back to our discussion, so the book that we will read, this book, let me just share the screen and share you where you can get the book. This book is available on also on archive, but somebody who wants to read the book, physical book, so this book is available here. Pakistan or Partition of India, paperback edition by Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. So the book is available, yeah, in Amazon, so you can get it. But it's also available free of charge on archive or any other platform. You can get it there as well. So whichever you feel like, go ahead and do it. But it's a very important and historic book in many contexts. So people should read this book because this has a lot of lessons. What is transpiring today in our society and also in far shores in UK. So there's a lot of links which we will discover. So now I'll start reading the book, and do let me know if you have any questions or comments. So I'll try to pick them up as well. Now let me prep the book. Okay, so this is the forward. Okay. First, let me know, is the text visible to everybody? I hope it's visible. It's good enough as. Okay. Okay. So is the text visible? Just audience, let me know if the text is visible so that I will be start reading it. Okay. I have made it 30. So, okay. I'll start be reading this and I'll go to the chapters as well. So these are actually speeches. So this book is a collection of speeches of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, and it's a collection of speeches. So this, when he gave those speeches, at that moment in time, it was on the partition because the partition was about to be discussed. So Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar had a really strong points on the partition of India. So in his speeches, he put out his points. So these are the speeches which were archived and published as books. So this is one of those. Okay. So I'll start reading it from here. It might be a little bit here and there somewhere, but don't worry. So we'll get through that. So this is volume 8, 1. Okay. This is Bhimrao Ambedkar speaking. I have an open mind, though not an empty mind. A person with an open mind is always the subject of congratulations. While this may be so, it must. Sorry, give me a minute. There is a call coming in my mobile. I'll just have to pause it. Just give me 30 seconds. Yes, apologies. There's a call coming in my mobile, so I had to pause this. Yeah, let me go there again. I have an open mind, though not an empty mind. A person with an open mind is always the subject of congratulations. While this may be so, it must, at the same time, be realized that an open mind may also be an empty mind, and that such an open mind, if it is a happy condition, is also a very dangerous condition for a man to be in. A disaster may easily overtake a man with an empty mind. Such a person is like a ship without ballast and without a rudder. It can have no direction. It may float, but may also suffer a shipwreck against a rock for want of direction, while aiming to help the reader by placing before him all the material, the relevant, important. The reader will find that I have not sought to impose my views on him. I have placed before him both sides of the question and have left him to form his own opinion. Dr. Bhim Rao Ambedkar, in his introduction to Pakistan or Partition of India. There are lots of things. Let me get the chat when I'm just sifting through it. Okay. Anyway, let's read through anyway, not a problem. The eighth volume of writings and speeches of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar consists of reprint of the third edition of his Pakistan or Partition of India. Published in 1946, the book has the relevance of a historical kaleidoscope of the thoughts and events that led to the partition of the country and the course of the politics of the subcontinent. No serious student of the current political or social events in the subcontinent can afford to ignore it. One may not agree with all that has been said in it. Suffice, suffice it to say that Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar displays a rare and original insight into the complex socio-political issues of his time. Presentation of the issues carries conviction with those who care to understand him. It is in this context that the full title of the book needs to be quoted: Pakistan or the Partition of India. The the Indian political what is what. The book evoked a high praise from Mr. Edward Thompson in his Enlist India Enlist India for Freedom. Dr. Ambedkar was aware of the significance of his contribution to the subject, and in his preface to the second edition noted that the book perhaps to have supplied a real want. I have seen how the thoughts, ideas, and arguments in it, contained in it have been pillaged by authors, politicians, and editors of newspapers to support their sides. I am sorry they did not observe the decency of acknowledging the source even when they lifted not merely the arguments but also the language of the book. But that is a matter I do not mind. I am glad that the book has been to Indians, service to Indians who are faced with his knotty problem of Pakistan. The fact that Mr. Gandhi and Mr. Jinnah, in their recent talks, cited the book as an authority on the subject, which might be consulted with advantage bespoke of the worth of the book. It was an analytical presentation of Indian history and Indian politics, containing material large and varied enough to be called Indian political what is what. Its objectivity and rationality is attested by the fact that it was disowned by the antagonist and unowned by the protagonist of Pakistan. Dr. Ambedkar had drawn a suggestive picture of the situation that was emerging in the subcontinent, and though he was not a political stargazer, he could read the signs of the future shock for which he wanted the people to be prepared and to take planned and to take later events and accidents in their strides. Behind the political drama of constitution making, there are sociological factors and historical forces, and the task of a statesman is to shape the situation, to reduce social miseries, and to absorb the shocks of a sudden change in which men lose their intellectual moorings. This, in retrospect, was the task which Dr. Ambedkar took upon himself as the true nationalist and the of savior of the Indian people. He gave credit to the British for maintaining order, and he desired that the change from dependence to independence should be a smooth and peaceful passage to a happy future. The book has a real merit as an example of a happy presentation of arguments on both sides in English, which attracts and holds the attention of the reader. Dr. Ambedkar writes with ease and felicity of diction that should be the theme of study by those who are to express themselves in the Queen's English or Fowler's English idioms and phrases. Dr. Ambedkar has at his command a wealth of quotations and statistics to support his point of view and the linguistic skills of a trained and sophisticated advocate. He quotes passages from Burke to Augustine Birrell. Here is a passage from Birrell. Cooks, warriors, and authors must be judged by the of effects they produce. Toothsome dishes, glorious victories, present books. There are these are our demands. We have no desire to be admitted into the kitchen, the council, or the study. The cook may use her saucepans how she pleases. The warrior plays his men as he likes. The author handle his material or weave his plot as best he can. When the dish is served, we only ask, is it good? When the book comes out, does it read? Authors ought not to be above being reminded that it is the first duty to write agreeably. Some very disagreeable men have succeeded in doing so, and there is therefore no need for anyone to despair. Every author, be, be he grave or gay, should try to make his book as intriguing as possible. Reading is not the duty, and has consequently no business to be made disagreeable. Nobody is under any obligation to read any other man's book. The book here, reprinted, reads well and, beyond a doubt, is a piece of literature and of historical relevance. As William Hudson says in his introduction to the history of literature, one essential characteristic of any piece of literature is, as we said at the outset, that whatever its theme, it yields. It yields aesthetic pleasure by the manner in which such theme is handled. Beyond its intellectual and emotional content, therefore, and beyond its fundamental quality of life, it appeals to us by reason of its form. This means that literature is a fine art and that, like all fine arts, has its own laws and conditions of workmanship. One would treat the book as a fine piece of literature, and there are many passages in that one may commit to memory to learn the secrets of elegant style that Ambedkar learned from Burke, Gibbon, Carlyle, etc. It should not be difficult to appreciate there was a basic similarity between Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhiji. Both wanted peace in the subcontinent. Here is what Dr. Ambedkar says of the value of peace as an adjunct to progress. He quotes Burke: the use of force alone is temporary. It may endure a moment, but it does not remove the necessity of subduing again. A nation is not governed which is perpetually to be conquered. The next objection to force is its uncertainty. Terror is not always the effect of force, and armament is not a victory. If you succeed, you are without resource. For conciliation failing, force remains. But force failing, no further hope of reconciliation is left. Power and authority are sometimes bought by kindness. Okay, that's interesting. but they can never be begged as alms by an impoverished and defeated in violence. A further objection to force is that you impair the object by your very endeavors to preserve it. Very interesting. The thing you fought for, to wit, to wit the loyalty of the people, is not the thing you recover, but depreciated, sunk, wasted, and consumed in the contest. So here, Dr. Ambedkar is talking about that war or violence should be the last option when you are in a struggle, because the end result of war is destruction, despair, poverty, and a bitter memory for both sides, which lasts generations. It is difficult to resist the temptation to quote several such passages of beauty and appeal. Dr. Ambedkar was in excellent company of the mighty minds of yore. He cites Laneput, Toynbee, Bryce, Lord Acton, to impress on the readers his points of argument. Tables of statistics, statements of figures, and citations from official documents are presented in logical sequence, supported by contemporary newspaper reports, thereby showing the quality of genuine scholarship that Dr. Ambedkar possessed. He should be the model for an academic don as much as for a practical advocate. However, it must be added that though logic was a strong point with Dr. Ambedkar, it was supported by experience and sometimes by bitter experiences of the hard school life. But he was not a bitter man. There are flashes of wit and humor in his writing. His epilogue to the discussion is worth quoting. Here, I propose to stop, for I feel that I have said all that I can say and about the subject. To use legal language, I have drawn the pleadings. This I may claim to have done at sufficient length. In doing so, I have adopted that uh, prolix style so dear to the Victorian lawyers, under which the two sides plied one another with the plea and replication. He then sets out the issue carefully, showing how the partition could be resolved. Dr. Ambedkar, in his exercise, analyzes the logic of the situation. His was the method of inquiry rooted in experience. It was not only the dialectical skill of an advocate, but also a frank recognition of the truth of everyday life that was lived in the subcontinent. Dr. Ambedkar was applying the method which may be lost, described in the words of Abraham Kaplan in The Conduct of Inquiry, Methodology for Behavioral Sciences. Says Kaplan, it is in the empirical component that science is differentiated from fantasy. The inner coherence, even stricter self consistency, may look a delusional system as well as a scientific one. Paraphrasing Archimedes, we may each of us declare, give me a premise to stand on, and I will deduce a world. But it will be a fantasy world, except insofar as the premise gives it a measure of reality. It is experience alone that gives us realistic premises. It is for this reason that Dr. Ambedkar counseled that our premises should be constantly revised. Deductive logic is not sufficient to interpret this. Theories, sentiments, values, and prejudices often constitute the intellectual equipment of the average person, for sometimes even reasonable men tend to be guided by such methods of thought. It is such methods, though, that make things good or bad for us, but that is only a passing impression, and we are shaken out by the fantasy world of our beliefs and prejudice. Pakistan or Partition of India is a valuable source of historical material. After more than 45 years, its value as the record of contemporaneous events has increased. It is hoped that both the research scholar and the lay reader will find it a rich and rewarding experience to read the material presented by Dr. Ambedkar in the perspective of history. The editorial board expresses its thanks to Mr. Okay, will not go into this. So this is the way we edited. Okay, we'll start reading the chapters. Let me go to the chat and see what's happening. Okay, let me just remove this and we'll take the chat and then we will again start reading it. Hmm. Yeah, some interesting conversation going on between, really interesting. Let me just go ahead and read the first chapter itself. Okay, so we are back. So now we are in the title section. So we'll be going here. Chapter 1 is what does the League demand? Part 1 is Muslim case of Pakistan. Chapter 2 is a nation calling for a home, escape from degradation. Part 2 is our Hindu case against Pakistan. And part 3 is what if not Pakistan? That's very interesting. Part 4 is Pakistan and the Malays. Part 5. Part 5 is must there be a Pakistan? The problem of Pakistan. Who can decide? Interesting. So we'll directly go to the reading. So we already read the second edition as well. Let's see if we can go there. Let's go to 21. Hmm. We'll try to go to the first chapter. Okay. Let's start from here. This is the introduction. Introduction. The Muslim League's resolution on Pakistan has called forth different reactions. There are some who look upon it as a case of political measles, to which a people in the infancy of their conscious unity and power are very liable. Others have taken it as a permanent frame of the Muslim mind and not merely a passing phase, and have in consequence been greatly perturbed. I must say, as in we are seeing in the preface, that the kind of language, the English is used by Dr. Ambedkar is quite amazing. It's like a Queen's English. So as we say that people who went to London and became lawyers and barristers, they were like taught in kind of a Queen's English, and they become some kind of a mentally Englishman. So they were writing in Queen's English just to prove their credentials of being the best English speakers of India. The question is undoubtedly controversial. The issue is vital, and there is no argument which has not been used in the controversy by one side to silence the other. Some argue that this demand for, so we are talking about the Muslim League has passed a resolution where they want partition of India and creation of a separate state for Muslims in the eastern and the western side of undivided India. The question is undoubtedly controversial. The issue is vital, and there is no argument which has not been used in the controversy by one side to silence the other. Some argue that this demand for partitioning of India into two political entities under separate national states staggers their staggers their imagination. Others are so choked with a sense of righteous indignation at this wanton attempt to break the unity of a country, which it is claimed has stood as one for centuries, that their rage prevents them from giving expressions to their thoughts. Others think Others think it need not be taken seriously. They treat it as a trifle and try to destroy it by shooting it into the smiles. So some people actually thought that Muslim League, when they were asking for partition, it was like a kind of a child asking for a candy, and the parents would laugh at it. And metaphors. You don't cut your head to cure your headache. Hmm. You don't cut a baby into two because two women are engaged in fighting out a claim it as to who its mother is. Are some of the analogies which are used to prove the absurdity of Pakistan. In a controversy carried on, in a controversy carried on the plane of pure sentiment, there is nothing surprising if a dispassionate student finds more, okay, my God, let me see, stupefaction, stupefaction, oh, it's a Queen's English show, stupefaction and less understanding, more heat and less light, more ridicule and less seriousness. My position in this behalf is definite, if not singular. This is Ambedkar's opinion. I do not think the demand for Pakistan is the result of mere political distemper, which will pass away with the effects of time. As I read the situation, it seems to me that a characteristic in the it is a characteristic in the biological sense of the term, which the Muslim body politic has developed in the same manner as an organism develops characteristics. Hmm. Whether it will survive or not in the process of natural selection must depend upon the forces that may become operative in the struggle for existence between Hindus and Muslims. I am not staggered by Pakistan. I am not indignant about it, nor I nor do I believe that it can be smashed by shooting it, shooting into its smiles and metaphors. Those who believe in shooting it by the smiles and should remember that nonsense does not cease to be a nonsense because it is put in rhyme. And that a metaphor is no argument, though it be sometimes the gunpowder to drive one home and embed it in the memory. I believe that it would be neither wise nor possible to reject summarily a scheme if it has behind the sentiment, if not the passionate support of 90% Muslims of India. I have no doubt that the only proper attitude to Pakistan is to study it in all its aspects, to understand its implications, and to form an intelligent judgment about it. I wonder why nobody read this book for so many years. With all this, a reader is sure to ask, is this book on Pakistan uh, seasonable in the sense that one must read it as one must eat the fruits of the season to keep oneself in health. If it is seasonable, it is readable. These are natural queries, and an author whose object is to attract readers may well make use of the introductions to meet them. As to the seasonableness, okay, I don't know what the word means actually. Seasonableness of the book. Okay, it's like a seasoned. Okay, it's like the partition was happening. The book is written. So people thought that once the partition has happened or not happened, the book will become irrelevant in so many ways. As to the seasonableness of the book, there can be no doubt. The way of looking at India by Indians themselves must be admitted to have undergone a complete change during the last 20 years. Referring to India, referring to India, Professor Arnold Toynbee wrote in 1915, British statesmanship in the 19th century regarded India as a sleeping beauty, whom Britain had a prescriptive right to woo when she awoke. So it hedged with so it hedged with thorns the garden where she lay, to safeguard her from marauders prowling in the desert, prowling in the desert without. Now the princess is awake and is claiming the right to dispose of her own hand. So here, dispose of her own hand means so when partition was discussed, so a lot of leadership and the newspapers talk about an amputated India, where the eastern part and the western part would be become Pakistan. So it would be like an incomplete India. So in 1800s, there's a concept of Bharat Mata, where you had the map of India, and India would be a mother, and the eastern and western parts would represent the hands. So if partition did happen, but at that time they were thinking that if partition happens, the Bharat Mata would be without its two hands, like amputated. While marauders have transformed themselves into, okay, so he's talking about something which we all know. While marauders have transformed themselves into respectable gentlemen diligently occupied in turning the desert into a garden too, but grievously impeded by the British thorn hedge. He uses quite a good metaphor. When they politely request us to remove it, we shall, okay, we shall do well to consent, for they will not make the demand till they feel themselves strong enough to enforce it. And in the tussle that we will follow if we refuse, the sympathies of the Indian princess will not be on our side. Now that she is awake, she wishes to walk abroad among her neighbors. She feels herself capable of rebuffing without our countenance, countenance any blandishments or threats they may offer her, and she is becoming as wary as they of the thorn hedge that confines her to her garden. If we treat her with with tact. India will never wish to secede from the spiritual brotherhood of British Empire. Okay, that's nice. Hmm. But so, what kind of spiritual British Empire and brotherhood were talking about when they were shooting at women and children at the Punjab in Jallianwala Bagh? Hmm. And what about a lot of atrocities which took place at the hands of the British? Was a kind of part of spiritual brotherhood. But it is inevitable that she would lead a more and more independent life of her own and follow the example of Anglo-Saxon Commonwealth by establishing direct relations with her neighbors. Although the writer is an Englishman, the view expressed by him in 1915 was the view commonly held by all Indians irrespective of caste or creed. Now that India, the sleeping beauty of Professor Tonby, is awake, what is the view of the Indians about her? On this question, there can be no manner of doubt that those who have observed this sleeping beauty behave in recent years feel she is a strange being quite different from the angelic, angelic princess that she was supposed to be. She is a mad maiden having a dual personality, half human, half animal, always in convulsions because of her true nature in perpetual conflict. Wonder who is the animal and who is the human. If there is any doubt about her dual personality, it has now been dispelled by the resolution of the League demanding the cutting up of India into two, Pakistan and Hindustan, so that these conflicts and convulsions due to a dual personality having been bound in one may cease forever, and so freed from each other may dwell in separate homes congenial to their respective cultures, Hindus and Muslims. It is beyond question that Pakistan is a scheme which will have to be taken into account. The Muslims will insist upon a scheme being considered. The British will insist upon some kind of settlement being reached between Hindus and the Muslims before they consent to any devolution of political power. There is no use blaming the British for insisting upon such a settlement as a condition precedent to the transfer of power. The British cannot consent to settle power upon an aggressive Hindu majority and make its here. Okay, so interesting. The British cannot consent to settle power upon an aggressive Hindu majority and make it its heir, leaving it to the deal with the minorities as its sweet pleasure. That that would not be ending imperialism. It would be creating another imperialism. So these are the thoughts of British that Dr. Ambedkar is saying, that British thought like this, that this would happen. So this should not be the case. And also we have seen in the readings of Dr. Raja Bhumik on his book Freedom on Indian Freedom Struggle that in 1900 onwards, when the freedom struggle was really at its peak, and we have seen 1905, the revolutionaries of Bengal were quite active, and also you have Savarkar and Tilak. So when that was happening, there was always a pushback from the British that what about the Muslims of in a subcontinent? You are already fighting, but nobody else is fighting with you. And they always British wanted that, okay, if you want independence, gather all the people, Hindus, Muslims, and others, and take a consented position, and then we will consider giving you independence, but not only on the demands of Hindus. Okay. So, okay, that would not be ending imperialism. It would be creating another imperialism. The Hindus, therefore, cannot avoid coming to grips with Pakistan, much as they would like to do. If the scheme of Pakistan has to be considered and there is no escape from it, then there are certain points which must be borne in mind. First point to note is that the Hindus and Muslims must decide the question themselves. Okay. They cannot invoke aid of anyone else. Certainly, they cannot expect British to decide it for them. From the point of view of the empire, it matters very little to the British whether India remains one or undivided whole, or is partitioned into two parts, Pakistan and Hindustan, or into 20 linguistic fragments as planned by the Congress. Okay. So Congress party had planned, okay, which is documented and mentioned here, that or it's or is partitioned into two parts, Pakistan or and Hindustan, or into 20 linguistic fragments as planned by the Congress, so long as all of them are content to live within the empire. Hmm. The British need not interfere for the simple reason that they are not affected by such territorial divisions. Further, if the Hindus are hoping that the British will use force and put down Pakistan, that is impossible. Hmm. In the first place, coercion is no remedy. The futility of force and resistance was pointed out by Burke long ago in his speeches relating to the coercion of the American colonies. Hmm. His memorable words may be quoted not only for the benefit of the Hindu Mahasabha, also for the benefit of all. This is what he said: the use of force alone is temporary. It may endure a moment, but it does not remove the necessity of subduing again. A nation is not governed, which is perpetually to be conquered. The next objection to force is the uncertainty. Terror is not always the effect of force, and armament is not a victory. If you do not succeed, you are without resource. For conciliation failing, force remains, but force failing, no further hope of reconciliation is left. Power and authority are sometimes bought by kindness. This is something interesting, but they can never be bogged down as arms. We'll leave this. Coercion as an alternative to Pakistan is therefore unthinkable. So he is quoting Burke and he's mentioning that coercion as an alternative to Pakistan is therefore unthinkable. Again, the Muslims cannot be deprived of the benefit of the principle of self-determination. The Hindu nationalists who rely on self-determination and ask how Britain can refuse India what the conscience of the world has conceded to the smallest of European nations cannot in the same breath ask the British to deny it to other minorities. The Hindu nationalist who hopes that Britain will coerce Muslim into abandoning Pakistan forgets that the right of nationalism to freedom from an aggressive foreign imperialism and the right of a minority to freedom from an aggressive majority's nationalism are two different things. Okay, so one thing is important. So, in the eyes of Ambedkar, Hindus and Muslims were two different nationalities. They were not the same. And he mentioned that, okay, he considered Hindus and Muslims as two nations, two cultural nations. And he said they should be given the opportunity to decide their future. nor does the former stand on the more sacred footing than the latter. They are merely two aspects of the struggle of freedom and, as such, equal in their moral import. Nationalists fighting for freedom from aggressive imperialism cannot well ask the help of the British imperialists to thwart the right of a minority to freedom from nationalism of an aggressive majority. The matter must, therefore, be decided upon by the Muslims and the Hindus alone. The British cannot decide the issue for them. This is the first important point to note. The essence of Pakistan is the opposition to the establishment of one central government having supremacy over the whole of India. Pakistan contemplates two central governments, one for Pakistan and the other for Hindustan. This gives rise to the second important point which Indians must take note of. That point is that the issue of Pakistan shall have to be decided upon before the plans for a new constitution are drawn and its foundations are laid. If there is to be one central government for India, the design of the constitution structure would be different from what it would be if there is to be one central government for Hindustan and another for Pakistan. That being so, it it will be most unwise to postpone the decision. Either the scheme should be abandoned and another substitute by mutual agreement, or should it should be decided upon. It will be the greatest folly to suppose that if Pakistan is buried for the moment, it will not never rise its head again. I am sure burying Pakistan is not the same thing as burying the ghost of Pakistan. So long as the hostility to one central government for India, which is the ideology underlying the Pakistan, persists, the ghost of Pakistan will be there, casting its ominous shadow upon the political future of India. This is what we are. So we are still in 2024 are dealing with the ghost of Pakistan as an idea. And what we see today in Bangladesh is a kind of a ghost of idea which is rearing its head again. Neither will it be prudent to make some kind of makeshift arrangements for the time being, leaving the permanent solution to some future day. To do so would be something like curing the symptoms without removing the disease. Hmm. But as often happens in such cases, the disease is driven in, therefore, making certain its recurrence, perhaps a mere virulent form. I feel certain that whether India should have the one central government is not a matter which can be taken as settled. It is a matter in it is a matter in issue, and although it may not be a live issue now, someday it will be. The Muslims have openly declared that they do not want to have any central government in India, and they have given their reasons in the most unambiguous terms. They have succeeded in bringing into being five provinces which are predominantly Muslim in population. In these provinces, they see the possibility of a Muslims forming a government, and they are anxious to see that the independence of the Muslim governments in these provinces is preserved. Actuated by these considerations, the central government is an eyesore to the Muslims of India. As they visualize the scene, they see their Muslim provinces made subject to a central government predominantly Hindu and endowed with powers of supervision over. Even the interference in the administration of these Muslim provinces, the Muslims feel that to accept one central government for the whole of India is to consent to place the Muslim provinces, provincial governments under a Hindu central government and see the gains secured by the creation of Muslim provinces lost by subjecting them to a Hindu government at the center. The Muslims' way of escape from this tyranny of a Hindu center is to have no central government in India at all. Okay, we'll take some. I'll go to chat so we can see a lot is happening. Okay, do share your questions. Okay, so although it's a long book and pretty difficult book because it's written in a very difficult English language, but still we'll try to do ask the questions. Okay, audience, do let me know when you want me to stop the reading. Okay, so then we will go ahead and discuss a few things because there are few points which I have noted down already. This is important. Boishali, there is a 15-year-old documentary done by British Pakistan journalist on the grooming gangs. I am pretty sure she has been thrown out of her community. It's on YouTube. Okay. 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 See, I was reading. So could you just repost the questions again, if it's possible? Let me. I will go through anyway. Okay. Saptarshi, please post a question again. I am going through the chat. Hmm. Okay. Retrowave. Around 2007, National Association of Muslim Police was formed to heavily lobby and save Muslims who got rightfully convicted. Hmm. That's interesting. Okay, Shoptorshi's question is here. Thank you. Japan and South Korea are, as societies have fallen, unfortunately, both are currently vassal states of USA. Yes, in so many ways. Cool. I will go ahead and read, and we have time, so we'll be reading for another 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and then we'll go for our discussions. I'll open the forum for people to join. Okay, you can paste the questions. I'll take it later. Not a problem. Let's read it. Okay. Just keep the question ready. Just paste it when I am finished with this chapter. Are the Muslims alone opposed to the existence of a central government? What about Hindus? There seems to be a silent premise underlying all political discussions that are going on among the Hindus that there will always be in India a central government as a permanent part of her political constitution. How far such a premise can be taken for granted is more than I can say. I may, however, point out that there are two factors which are dormant for the present but which someday may become dominant and turn Hindus away from the idea of central government. The first is the cultural antipathy between Hindu provinces. The Hindu provinces are by no means a happy family. It cannot be pretended that the Sikhs have any tendencies for the Bengalis or the Rajputs or the Madrasis. The Bengali loves only himself. Hmm. The Madrasi is bound by his own world. As to Oh, Maratha. I think he's Maratha. Maharat. Okay, the Maratha who does not recall that Marathas who set out to destroy Muslim empire in India became a menace to the rest of Hindus whom they harassed and kept under their yoke for nearly a century. I think he is talking about the raids in the eastern fringes of Bengal, and also Marathas occupied quite a land in South India. The Hindu provinces have no common tradition and no interest to bind them. On the other hand, the differences of language, race, and the conflicts of the past have been most powerful forces tending to divide them. It is true that the Hindus are getting together, and the spirit of moving them to become one united nation is working on them. But it must not be forgotten that they have not yet become a nation. They are in the process of becoming a nation, and before the process is completed, there may be a setback which may destroy the work of a whole century. In the second place, there is the financial factor. It is not sufficiently known what it costs the people of India to maintain a central government and the proportionate burden each province has to bear. The total revenue. So Ambedkar is talking about the issues which are having now, where Kerala and South Indian governments are complaining that the tax revenues are not being given back to them. So he foresaw a lot of things. The total revenue of British India comes at 194.60. Okay, I really can't count it, but it's it crores. Okay, per annum. Okay, 194. So it's about, I think, 200 crores per annum. Of this sum, the amount raised by the provincial government from provincial sources comes annually to about 73 crores, and that raised by the central government from central sources to revenue comes at 121. This will show what the central government costs the people of India when one considers that the central government is concerned only with maintaining peace and does not discharge any functions which have relations to the progress of the people. It should cause no surprise if people begin to ask whether it is necessary that they should pay annually for such an enormous price to purchase peace. This reminds me of the when the U.S. government US was fighting the U.S. The South and East were fighting to form a central government. So, and those papers are called the papers, Federalist Papers. So in the Federalist Papers, the same issue was discussed, that why we need a central government. What is the need of a central government? In hindsight, we can see that people had decided that they needed a central government, which will become a binding glue. Without a central government, America today would not be the same as we see today, despite having the autonomy to print their own money and make their own laws. In this connection, it must be borne in mind that the people in the provinces are literally starving, and there is no source left to the provinces to increase their revenue. This burden of maintaining central government, which the people of India have to bear, is most unevenly distributed the different provinces. The sources central revenues are customs, excise, salt, currency, posts and telegraphs, income tax, railways. It is not possible from the accounts published by the Government of India to work out the distribution of three sources of central revenue, namely currency, posts and telegraphs, and railways. Only the revenue raised from other sources can be worked out province by province. The result is shown in the following table. Madras was still contributing the highest. It is still not now. Bengal and Bombay were at par. UP was at par. Hmm. But UP was a far bigger than what we see today. Central provinces and bearers. Hmm. Sindh was not doing that well. It will be seen from this table that the burden of maintaining central government is not only heavy but falls unequally upon the different provinces. The Bombay province government raises 12 as against the central government raises 22 from Bombay. The Bengal government raises 12 as against the central government raises 23 from Bengal. The Sindh government is 3. Okay, interesting. Okay, the Assam government raises nearly 2.5 crores. Okay, but the central government raises nearly 2 crores from Assam. While such is the burden of central government on these provinces, the rest of the provinces contribute next to nothing to central government. The Punjab raises 11 crores for itself, but contributes only 1 crore to the central government. We'll stick this part. It's a lot of the financial factors has so far passed without notice, but time may come when even the Hindus, who are the strongest supporters of central government in India, the financial considerations may make a greater appeal than what they purely patriotic considerations do now. So it is possible that someday the Muslims, for communal considerations, and Hindus, for financial considerations, may join hands to abolish central government. Yes. If this were to happen, it is better if it happens before the foundations of a new constitution is laid down. If it happens after the foundation of new uh, constitution envisaging one central government were laid down, it would be the greatest disaster. Out of the general wreck, not only India as an entity will vanish, but it will not be possible to save even the Hindu unity. As I have pointed out, there is not much cement even among Hindu provinces. And once the little cement which exists is lost, there will be nothing with which to build up even the unity of the Hindu provinces. It is because of this that Indians must decide before preparing the plans and laying the foundations for whom the constitution structure is to be raised and whether it is temporary or permanent. After the structure is built as one whole on one single foundation with girders running through from one end to other, if therefore a part of it is to be severed from the rest, the knocking out of the rivets will shackle the whole building and produce cracks and in parts of structure which are intended to remain in one whole. The danger of cracks, the danger of cracks is greater if the cement which binds them is, as in the case of India, is of poor quality. If the new constitution is designed for India as one whole and structure is raised on that basis, and thereafter the question of separation of Pakistan from Hindustan is raised, and Hindus have to yield the altercations that may become necessary to give effect to this severance. To severance may bring about a collapse of the whole structure. The desire of Muslim provinces may easily infect Hindu provinces, and the spirit of disruption generated by the Muslim provinces may cause all round disintegration. Okay, let's go to the chat again. Okay, Shoptorsi, I have your questions. Let me just put them. Okay, interesting. We'll talk about it. Okay, so let's take Shoptorsi's first question. Okay, I would respectively disagree with the author when he gripes about having no common language or so-called traditions. Yes, I would certainly see that at that time the politics was very different. Okay, and we have to remember that for 200 years the whole generation was gone through the British education system, and that system was designed to make us as single entities, separate from each other. So Ambedkar may even not know what we are talking about now in 2024. So that keeping in mind, I do agree with you that there's a lot of in common. But the British educated elites, and Ambedkar was part of the elite in so many ways. So they did not know what the unity was, and it was hidden from them. So I would give some bit of doubt to the author in this regard, that he may not have known what has been taught to him. Okay. I would suggest that we have common but not same traditions, because we are not homogeneous as a whole. Hmm. Very good example and a very relevant example. Makar Sankranti is a great example where we still practice common event but with local heterogeneous traditions. Okay, question. Whenever we suggest, as Baba Saheb did about Baba Saheb did about majority Muslims to go argument from Pakistani lefty, we are bigots and they are not a monolith. What do you think would be a counter to this? This book has specifically mentioned that 90% of the Muslims had voted for Pakistan. Now, there is one argument which is given that the elections which took place at that time, only few people could actually vote. So technically, the argument is not wrong. Okay, because we don't have the laws like we have now, where everybody with a voter ID card can go and vote. So at that time, when elections happened, only the elites were able to actually eligible to vote. So technically, the argument is correct, but in other ways, the argument can be given that even if the voting was not done by the maybe the Paswanda of the Muslim polity, okay, the mindset of the community was already there when 1946 happened. The 1946 riots, which happened in Kolkata and in Noakhali, who did that, and what was the mentality? What was the mindset was there? So, like that gives a pertinent answer that the Kolkata 1946 and Noakhali is evident. It doesn't really matter who vote, who did not vote. The mindset was already flashed out in those riots. Okay, the same question. Yes, yes. Shoptorsi, I would certainly recommend reading this book, Hitting New Medina by Venkat Tulipala. This is an excellent book. I think people should read this book who want to know what is happening. Okay, what I will do is there are few. If people let me open this to the audience, because if audience wants to come and discuss, please join. I think people might have a lot to talk and discuss, because it's a very long book and very difficult book to read. So people might get bored of my reading. So let's discuss something. But if you want me to go ahead and read, I will read it. If you want to talk about a few of the points which are discussed, we will discuss them. So whichever audience wants, I'll do it. I can read it happily. but I don't want to put people to sleep by my reading. Okay, so I have shared the link and also it is there. So if people want to join, you can join. I will go ahead and finish the reading. Maybe to read a few more pages, and then we will again come back to comments and questions. History, history is not wanting in instances of constitution threatened with disruptions. There is the instance of the southern states of America. Okay, exactly we were talking about in the previous page, where Dr. Ambedkar knew about what would happen, what happened in American Revolution, threatened with disruption. There is the instance of the southern states of American Union. Natal has always been anxious to get out of the Union of South Africa, Natal. So Natal is a province in South Africa. So Natal has always been anxious to get out of from the Union of South Africa, and Western Australia recently applied, though unsuccessfully, to secede from the Australian Commonwealth. In these cases, actual disruption has not taken place, and where it did, it was soon healed. Indians, however, cannot hope to be so fortunate. Oh, fortunate, yeah. Theirs may be the fate of Czechoslovakia. In the first place, it would be futile to entertain the hope that if a disruption of Indian constitution took place by the Muslim provinces separating from Hindu provinces, it would be possible to win back the seceding provinces as was done in the USA. After the Civil War, secondly, if the new Indian constitution is a Dominion constitution, even the British may find themselves powerless to save the constitution from such disruption. If it takes place after its foundations are laid, it seemed to be therefore imperative that the issue of Pakistan should be decided upon before the new constitution is devised. Question to the audience. Okay, Vinda. Okay. Okay. Uh, there is a book, the RS. Okay, we are reading the book. So this is the second edition of the book. So Dr. Ambedkar wrote this book, Pakistan or Partition of India. Okay, and we are reading this book. So, and there are a lot of other speeches which are actually mentioned in this book. So we are reading the book itself. So if you see the book, you will be there. So the book is also available online. You can get it free of cost. Okay. Hmm. If there can be no doubt that Pakistan is a scheme which Indians will have to resolve upon at the next revision of the constitution, and if there is no escape from deciding upon it, then it would be a fatal mistake for the people to approach it without a proper understanding of the question. The ignorance of some of the Indian delegates to the Round Table Conference of Constitutional Law, I remember, led by Mr. Garvin of the Observer, to remark that it would have been much better if the Simon Commission, instead of writing a report on India, had made a report on constitutional problems of India and how they were met by the constitutions of the different countries of the world. Such a report, I know, was prepared for the use of the delegates who framed the Constitution of South Africa. This is an attempt to make good that deficiencies as and as such I believe it will be welcomed as a seasonable piece. So much for the question whether the book is seasonable. As to the second question, whether the book is readable, no writer can forget the words of Augustine Birrell. when he said, okay, I think we have read through this. Okay. Authors ought to not to be above being reminded that it is their first duty to write agreeably, some very disagreeably. Men have succeeded in doing so. And there is therefore no need for anyone to spare. Every author, be he grave or gay, should try to make his book as in, in ingratiating, okay, ingratiating as possible. Reading is not a duty and has consequently no business of being made disagreeable. Nobody is under any obligation to read any other man's book. I am fully aware of this, but I am not worried about it. That may well apply to other books, but not to a book on Pakistan. Every Indian must read a book on Pakistan. If not this, then some other. If he wants to help his country to steer a clear path. If any book does not read well, that is, its taste be not good, the reader will find two things in which I am sure are good. So Ambedkar is telling about his book that he wrote and what good about it. The first thing he will find is that the ingredients are good. There is in the book material which will be helpful and to gain access to which he will have to labor a great deal. Indeed, the reader will find that the book contains an epitome of India's political and social history during the last 20 years, which it is necessary for every Indian to know. The second thing he will find is that there is no partisanship. The aim is to expound the scheme of Pakistan in all its aspects and not to advocate for it. The aim is to explain, not to convert. It would, however, be pretense to say that I have no views on Pakistan. Views I have. Some of them are expressed, others may have to be gathered. Two things, however, may well be said about my views. Ambedkar's views on Pakistan. In the first place, whether they are expressed, they have been reasoned out. Secondly, whatever the views, they have certainly not been fixity of unpopular or of popular prejudice. So he is talking about the politically correct statements or views. So he says my views are not politically correct. They are really thoughts, not views. In other words, I have an open mind, though not an empty mind. A person with an open mind is always the subject of congratulations. While this may be so, it must at the same time be realized that an open mind may also be an empty mind, and that such an open mind, if it's happy condition, it's very dangerous condition for man to be in. A disaster may easily overtake a man with his empty mind. Such a person is like a ship without ballast and without a rudder. It, it can have no direction. It may float but may also suffer a shipwreck against a rock for want of direction. While aiming to help the reader by placing before him all the material relevant and important, the reader will find that I have not sought to impose my views on him. I have placed before him both sides of the question and have left him to form his own opinion. The reader may complain that I have been provocative in stating the relevant facts. I am conscious that such a charge may be leveled against me. I apologize freely and gladly for the same. My excuse is that I have no intention to hurt. I had only one purpose, that is, to force the attention of the indifferent and casual reader to the issues that is dealt with in the book. I ask the reader to put aside any irrational irritation that he may feel with me and concentrate his thoughts on this tremendous issue, which is to be Pakistan or no Pakistan. Part 1, Muslim case of Pakistan. Okay, we will start reading this in next session because it's very big. Okay. Okay, let's take a poll. Okay. Do you want me to read? Okay, I'm obsessed. Okay. Yes, you are absolutely correct, Aris. So, see, no political leader is a monolith. Okay. They evolve over time. Their politics evolves over time. Their thoughts, opinions evolve over time. So we should not be in that regard. Okay. So do you want me to read the first two pages of the where it is? Chapter 1, what does the league demand? Okay, let's read for 15 minutes and then we will do it. On 26th of March 1940, Hindu India was startled to, to attention as it had never been before. On that day, the Muslim League, at its Lahore session, passed the following resolution. While approving and endorsing the action taken by the Council and the Working Committee of All India Muslim League as indicated in their resolution dated 27th of August 17th and 18th September and 22nd of October 1939 and 3rd February 1940 on the constitutional issues, this session of All India Muslim League emphatically reiterates that the scheme of federation embodied in the Government of India Act 1935 is totally unsuited to and unworkable in the peculiar conditions of this country and is altogether unacceptable to Muslims in India. It further records its It further records its emphatic view that while the declaration dated on 18th October 1939 made by the Viceroy on behalf of His Majesty's government is reassuring in as far as declares that the policy and plan on which the Government of India Act 1935 is based will be reconsidered in consultation with various parties, interests, communities. Muslims in India will not be satisfied unless the whole constitution plan reconsidered, is, is reconsidered de novo and that no revised plan would be acceptable to the Muslims unless it is framed with their approval and consent. Hmm. So what does it show? So Muslims are like a minority in India, and nothing could work until they have given a stamp of approval. 3. Resolved that it is considered view this session of the All India Muslim League that no constitutional plan would be workable in this country or acceptable to the Muslims unless it is designated on the following basic principle wise that geographically contiguous units are demarcated into regions which should be so constituted with such territorial readjustment as may be necessary. That the areas in which the Muslims are numerically in a majority, as in the northwestern eastern zone of India, should be grouped to constitute independent states, in which the constituent units shall be autonomous and sovereign. The adequate, effective, and mandatory safeguards should be specifically provided in the Constitution for minorities in these units and in the regions for the protection of their religious, cultural, economic, political, administrative, and other rights and interest in the consultation with them. In the other parts of India where Muslims are in a minority, adequate, effective, and mandatory safeguards specifically provided in the constitution for them and other minorities for protection of their religious rights. The section further authorizes the working committee to frame scheme of constitution in accordance with these basic principles, providing for the assumption, finally, by the respective regions of all powers such as defense, external affairs, communications, customs, and such other matters as may be necessary. Hmm. What does this resolution contemplate? A reference to para 3 of the resolution will show that the resolution contemplates that the areas in which Muslims predominate shall be incorporated into independent states. In concrete terms, it means that Punjab, Northwestern Frontier Province, Balochistan, Sindh in the northwest, and Bengal in the east, instead of remaining as provinces of British India, shall be incorporated as independent states outside the British India. This is the sum and substance of resolution of Muslim League. Okay, let's ask a question to the audience. Okay, it is not techno feudalism. It is a new world order. Okay, I have a question to the audience. Let me just go through it. Does the resolution contemplate that the Muslim League provinces? Okay. Just okay, I just lost the thought I was having. So the question to the audience is, okay, that when we are seeing that Ambedkar is saying that they want all the areas where Muslims dominate to be separate from the British India. So they were like asking for like a separate country themselves. Okay. Now the question is, when to answer to question of Saptorshi mentioned, okay, how do we counter the statement of the left liberal lobby that all Muslims did not vote for Pakistan? Okay. So what was Muslim League about? Like Muslim League was a representation of Muslims of the subcontinent, and if the majority did not like Muslim League to be their political patrons, what was their voice? What was their compulsion of the silence? If the argument is that the majority of the Muslims did not consider Jinnah as their leader, then why don't choose a new leader? Why wait for things to go bad? Okay, I will read for another 10 minutes and then I will wind up for today. Does the resolution contemplate that these Muslim provinces, after being incorporated into states, will remain each an independent sovereign state, or will they be joined together into one constitution as members of a single state, federal or unitary? On this point, the resolution is rather ambiguous, if not self-contradictory. It speaks of grouping zones into independent states in which the constituent units shall be autonomous and sovereign. The use of the term constituent units indicates that what is contemplated is a federation. If that is so, then the use of the word sovereign is an attribute to the units is out of place. Federation of units, sovereignty of units are contradictions. It may be that what is contemplated is a confederation. It is, however, not very material for the moment whether these independent states are to form into a federation or a confederation. So confederation is the model used by the US. US is a confederation. What is important is that basic demand, namely that these areas are to be separated from India and formed into independent states. The resolution is so worded as to give the idea that the scheme, adumbrated in it is a new one. But there can be no doubt that the resolution merely resuscitates, resuscitates a scheme which was put forth by Sir Muhammad Iqbal in his presidential address to the Muslim League at its annual session held at Lucknow in December 1930. The scheme was not then adopted by the League. It was, however, taken up by Mr. Rahmat Ali, who gave it a name, Pakistan, by which it is known. Mr. Rahmat Ali, MA LLB, founded Pakistan movement in 1933. He divided India into two, namely Pakistan and Hindustan. His Pakistan included the Punjab, Northwest Frontier Province, Kashmir, Sindh, Balochistan. The rest to him was Hindustan. His idea was to have an independent and separate Pakistan, composed of five Muslim provinces of the north, as an independent state. The proposal was circulated to the members of the Round Table Conference but never officially put forth. It seems an attempt was made privately to obtain the assent of the British government, who, however, declined to consider it because they thought that this was a revival of the old Muslim empire. The League has only enlarged the original scheme of Pakistan. It has sought to create one more Muslim state in the east to include Muslims in Bengal and Assam. Barring this, it expresses in its essence the general outline, the scheme put forth by Sir Muhammad Iqbal and propagated by Rahmat Ali. There is no name given to this new Muslim state in the east. This was made no difference in the theory, and the issue involved in the ideology of Mr. Rahmat Ali. The only difficulty one feels is that the League, while enlarging the facets, has not christened the two Muslim states with short and sweet names, as it might have been expected to. That it did not do, and we are left to carry a discussion with two long jaw-breaking names of Muslims, Muslim state in the west, Muslim state in the east. I propose to solve this difficulty by reserving the name Pakistan to express the ideology underlying the two nation theory and its consequent effect, namely partition, and by designating the two Muslim states in the northwest and northeast as Western Pakistan and Eastern Pakistan. So the West Pakistan and East Pakistan names were primarily given by Mr. Ambedkar. The scheme not only called Hindu India to attention, but it shocked Hindu India. Now it is natural to ask, what is there that is new or shocking in this scheme? Is the idea linking up provinces in the northwest a shocking idea? If so, let it be remembered that the linking of these provinces is an age-old project put forth by successive viceroys, administrators, and generals of Pakistan provinces in the northwest, Punjab, and in the NWFP constituted a single province ever since Punjab was conquered by the British in 1849. The two continued to be a single province till 1901. It was in 1901 that Lord Curzon broke up their unity and created the present two provinces as the linking up of Punjab with Sindh. There can be no doubt that had the conquest of Sindh followed and not preceded the conquest of Punjab, Sindh would have been incorporated into Punjab. For the two are not only contiguous but are connected by a single river, which is the most natural tie between them. Although Sindh was joined to Bombay, which in the absence of Punjab was the only base from which it could be governed. The idea of disconnecting Sindh from Bombay and joining it to Punjab was not given up, and projects and that behalf were put forth from time to time. It was first put forward during the Governor General of Lord Dalhousie, but for financial reasons it was not sanctioned by the Court of Directors. After the mutiny, the question was reconsidered, but owing to the backward state of communication along the Indus, Lord Canning refused to give his consent. In 1876, Lord Northbrook was of the opinion that Sindh should be joined to Punjab. In 1877, Lord Lytton, who succeeded Northbrook, sought to create Trans-Indus province, consisting of the six frontier districts of Punjab and the Trans-Indus districts of Sindh. This would have included the six frontier districts of Punjab, namely Hazara, Peshawar, Kohat, Bannu, except cis Indus tracts. Dera Ismail Khan with the same exception. Okay. Dera Ghazi Khan and Trans Indus Sindh with the exception of Karachi. Lytton also proposed that Bombay should receive the whole or part of the central provinces in order to compensate for the loss of trans in the Sindh. These proposals were not acceptable to the Secretary of State during the royalty of Lord Lansdowne. The same project was revived in its original form, namely the transfer of Sindh. Okay, we will halt our reading for today. So we are into 24. So we will start reading from 25 page next reading, and we will see if we have any questions. De-highlight the comment. Sorry, sir. Yeah, that happens. Which comment is that if you read? Okay. Okay, so our reading for is done today. And let's take questions. So we took few questions, and let's see if we have any other questions or comments we can take. The behavior of past grooming gangs in British is no different from what they did to 500,000 Bengali girls in 1971. Mostly Hindu, but some Muslims too. Hmm. Yes, and actually it's far more sinister in so many ways. In 1971, they were under the directive to see. Okay, yes, okay. They could be Bengali Hindu girls, so that next generation, East Pakistani children as superior genes. Yes, yes. Rishi is with us. Hi, Rishi.
Hi Dada, namaste to all.
Namaste.
Amazing reading session, and a very hidden book. I guess you are reading today that actually got lost um, in the course of time, but it got resurrected with I guess Anandji, right? Anand Ranganathan.
Yes, yes. Ranganathan. I think there are many people who actually like even in the circle of academics, this book is well known. But they don't talk about it, but that's a different idea thing. But it is not an issue as such.
Yeah, because this book actually hurts the consensus, right? The academic consensus, which is pretty much like liberal, that the community which has been scrutinized in this book is actually the protected community right now in their eyes. So it's a very hush hush thing, I guess.
Yes. So in academics, it is already well known. Okay, but with Anandji and others, it came into fore. So
True.
because we started reading the book, so it came. But this is actually not an easy book to read actually, because the English and other things is, it's a well written book, very well written book, but not an easy book to read. So that
Yeah,
we need to
and
keep
many.
in mind.
Yeah, true. And also, there is this thing, right? That there are many figures and facts, so it becomes very hectic at times to read.
Yes, but that is correct. That would have been the style of the author at that time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a trained economist also, so he might be doing it like as part of his training. So there's nothing
Yes,
wrong with
because
it, I
he was
guess.
a, see, if you see Desai Deepak writing a book, correct? So he's a lawyer, so he's like into details and outlines, okay, and into concise dialogue. Okay, so
Yeah, and
being a lawyer, that helps.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, true. And Baba Sahib was both a lawyer and an economist. So yeah, amazing combination, I guess.
So we also have Munshi Shastri. Namaste ji.
Namaste.
So you had your coffee.
Not yet.
Okay, fine. So please tell me what you have to say.
No, I just want to say that that was a good reading. Um, and we should bring some academics over as well to talk about.
Uh, yes, yes. Actually, I am in talks with few people, but it will take time to get them on board. But we are talking with a few academics. So we actually with India, Pakistan, and these books, these are a bit sensitive books. So academics are not really into controversial books. So say in public what they want, what they say. That becomes a challenge for many of us. But in non-controversial subjects, I am in touch with few academics and who will be coming to share their opinions and expert opinions on the political issues. So that would be coming in month of February onwards.
I'm kind of curious because
Hmm, hmm,
I'm reading like Gad Sad's Parasitic Mind.
hmm,
Now, it like despite what Ambedkar wrote, if the
hmm, hmm.
Congress party basically acted like, you know, by putting its head in the sand, or just or because the top leadership thought that way, then uh, I wonder if you can make a case that they also had a lot of suicidal empathy.
See, we have to read a lot, and unfortunately, I would consider I haven't read a lot. I haven't heard a lot. So, and a lot of is not actually written. See, because most of the archives are still correct with British, and they took it. So, and those archives would actually give us a kind of a real picture. If somebody like Vikram Sampath for his book on Savarkar went to the British archives and got those archives and read them. So I think those archives are uh, still not read and still not investigated, so that we can get what was really happening. So as you mentioned, 1930s in the Lucknow resolution, the Pakistan demand came about. Then for 10 years, it was in the cold storage. In 1940, again, it becomes a kind of a burning issue. So what
Yeah.
happened in those 10 years is very important. And those you will not know until somebody goes and reads those archives, what happened, those
No, that
political
makes
things.
no, that makes sense, right? But by 1944, 45, it was
Hmm.
already inevitable.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah, yeah.
understood that, right?
No, no.
So, but
40 onwards, it was, Ambedkar is writing the book, and he's writing a book. He knows it is inevitable. He just finding out why it is inevitable. He gave us,
I
the future generations, the option to actually know why it was inevitable.
I mean, he
I
wrote
would
the book.
say
Go ahead.
Yeah, Rishi, go
no,
ahead.
no. Okay. So I would say that on Shastriji's point that Dr. Manohar Lohia in his book actually refers to this issue that there was a dichotomy within the Congress party, that there were some of the dogmatic people which who actually till the 45 they were in this they were in this nausea that somehow partition could be averted at all costs, which we can get for this. He cites actually Rajendra Prasad as an example. So he was till that time writing articles and books like saying no partition shall not happen, and we how we are a common nation and so on and so forth. So this was a problem actually lying within the party itself to support Shastriji's point. Just this much.
Yeah, I mean, so I wonder. There are two things, right? So first thing is that okay, one, there was obviously denial. There was a not an acceptance of reality over there. That I can understand. The other thing is like, was there some kind of suicidal empathy for the um, um, the Muslim League position? Because Gandhi would he basically, like, if you read Freedom, um
Freedom at
sorry,
midnight by
sorry, Midnight to Freedom, sorry,
oh, hmm.
uh then you would also realize that Gandhi offered a lot of things for the partition to not happen, right? In a lot of ways you could kind of see that, uh you can kind of sense that Gandhi was saying, "Oh, only if we were better, then they wouldn't act this way." Kind of, you can kind of sense that mentality through his actions. So I'm wondering, like, if there was a fair amount of suicidal empathy within the Congress party.
Yes, I think you made a very important point. Like I was also actually pondering over reading the book itself, okay, but could not do it. But this empathy that we are talking about, correct? So, is that an elite empathy, or is that a political empathy, or it is a political opportunism? What do you think? What it is? See, empathy can be many times, many types, correct? Like, I want to be in power. I want to have the political power. So I will empathize with that person. Okay, you are saying you are saying is right. I will give you this. The idea is to not empathize with him, but the empathy works as a political tool to gain his confidence and gain his political power.
I mean, that would mean that there was some amount of shrewdness, right? Like, I exchanged this for that, but that actually happened after, did not happen before the partition, right? So
Mhm,
I I don't think there was that any kind of like political shrewdness going on.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
at least if you read, um, say, Freedom, Midnight to Freedom, and Freedom at Midnight, and Gandhi's autobiography, or even what others had to say, right? Like, Ambedkar was primarily criticizing Gandhi. Savarkar was primarily criticizing Gandhi. Um, Jinnah was basically sort of salivating Gandhi's actions. Like, I mean, people were sort of um, predicting Gandhi's actions. So, I'm. I mean, again, it feels like there's a sense of like surrender to Gandhi happening because he was ultimately, the quote unquote, the Mahatma.
Absolutely, absolutely correct. You are. Yes. So, and that could be, if I remember, like if I could like decipher something, that would be correct. The 200 years of British education. Okay, and we have to know that okay, the elites were British educated. Okay, so that British education and indoctrination maybe had something to do with that empathy. This correct. This liberty, this like franchise, all those things. Correct. The ideals of British Raj. Correct. It was there. So that would have been kind maybe defining them to make that
Dada,
decision. Hmm.
Dada, sorry.
Hmm.
So I would say that there were some mistakes, I guess, from the sensible ones, but who still stayed dogmatically like devoted to Gandhi. So someone like Sardar Patel, like he knew what was going to happen, yet he still like latched on to Gandhi till the end times. Of course, later on he was really pissed off with him, so that's also the case. I think they like really botched it up. Raja Gopalachari was one of the examples. I think
Yes.
they were like really, even if they were like to take your point, even if they were English educated, they were really rooted in like common sense, dharma, so on and so forth. Yet they made such mistakes, like also Dada, maybe Shastriji could comment on this as well. So Gandhi had this thing, right? So right before the partition there was this meeting, right? Like Congress, what do they say, I forgot, the Congress core committee meeting. Yeah, that. So in that there were like all of the members came from all parts of India. And when the speeches were given by Acharya Kriplani of Sindh and Abdul Ghaffar Khan of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, saying partition shouldn't happen and we shall at least fight the the ones who are trying to like do partition and so on and so forth, when they were like riling up Congress from within the party, someone, I don't remember, maybe Nehru or someone, went straight to Gandhi and said, please come and join in the meeting. And when Gandhi came and gave his speech, in which he said some unusually like horrid things, so all the like the whole party like turned upside down, and like they agreed to the terms of Gandhi. So Gandhi had this sort of like some juju with him, like he spoke like in idiotic terms also, like, right, like he used to speak in such confusing languages as well. Like people used to get like confused every time, like what is he saying? It's not even common sense at all. And given that, and also his attire of being a Mahatma and so on, that was like mystifying him all the time. So maybe those things also affected a lot within the other people in the party. uh, both of you could comment on it.
Yeah, Shastri, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would say like Gandhi was pretty adept at quote unquote emotional blackmail, right? Even Patel, sorry, even Nehru commented on that once, right? Like, like in a conversation between Patel and Nehru, Nehru actually said, "Oh, you're not Gandhi. That kind of emotional blackmail does not work with me." So I think like you could kind of sense that how the relationship in the party itself was, and the weight that Gandhi held in terms of like what the party could, uh, in terms of the party's own politics. So um, it's not surprising, but again, I think it might be useful to even look at this suicidal empathy thing.
Yeah,
'Cause-
I can like, because I have done a little bit of study on that book, not at the book, but I have know the content of the book and how he describes it in so many. So actually, I was reading, not reading, I was listening to one more podcast in the Upward about the book on propaganda. So this propaganda and psychology and the Gatsat book actually quite iterated. So I'll be trying to have like amalgamate these books and create a conversation around them. That they actually quite interrelated in so many ways. But yes, so the social empathy that is he is talking about, Shastri, is quite plausible in so many ways. But I have one question to Shastri. Okay, why only a well-meaning, general, normal human being falls for this empathy, not a monster or not a, say, not a good person in a way? Why do you think only a well-meaning person who do not do any harm to any other human being fall for this kind of tactic and become a victim? Which that actually is very intriguing question to me.
I think I'll go refer to Gad's book, right? Like, I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
he gives the example of
Hmm.
a parasite, like how you have parasites in the real world. Like, say, I think um, there's a particular parasite, and it latches onto a dragonfly, right? Or some other kind of, or grasshopper, or some other kind of insect. Now that insect cannot survive in water. Yet that parasite makes that insect jump into water so that it can reproduce itself. Right? So that's the kind of example that Gad gives. And then he said, similar to how you have these kinds of parasitical cycles in the real world, you can also have parasitical thoughts that transmits from people to people, right? And that people aren't immune to that. You have to like sort of be aware of
build up
it.
build up the immunity to be able to confront it and
Exactly,
not to fall for it.
exactly.
And most
Now,
people would do, actually. Most people would fall for it. Most people.
most people would fall for it. Um, so that's one thing. Uh, that's why. So if you have a particularly charismatic person, now you have to admit, like Savarkar, Ambedkar, Nehru, Gandhi, they're all very charismatic people. I mean, if you're running a national movement uh, in one of the most populous places in the world, you can't do that without any charisma. Modi is also charismatic in that perspective, if you
Yes.
think about it. All tall leaders are very charismatic. So, Gandhi wooing away large sections of society with his suicidal empathy is not surprising, if you put it that way.
Yes.
Um, what might be worth looking at is, how Gandhi went down this path of suicidal empathy. And I suspect it's kind of like people reading Nagarjuna for the first reading Nagarjuna and coming up encountering the concept of shunyata for the first time, right? And if you are not careful with Nagarjuna, you might mistake what shunyata for
Nihilism.
nihilism, right? And there have been cases where people go excessively down that path and end up in a very
Bad state.
dark place. Yeah. So that I wonder if something like that happened.
So
Yes.
on this issue, I have a great suggestion actually. So both stalwarts, Lala Lajpat Rai and Aurobindo, hinted at why Gandhi was like that, like suicidal empathy and uh, ahimsa, on the issue of ahimsa especially. So according to Lala Lajpat Rai, it was the misunderstanding of Jain ideals. So Jain concept of ahimsa, like total ahimsa, that misconstruing that, and according to Sri Aurobindo, uh, Christianity as per Tolstoy, Christian morals as per Tolstoy. Since Gandhi was a great devotee of Tolstoy himself, so that really affected him. According to Sri Aurobindo, he like says it multiple times in his evening talks by A.B. Purani. That whole 2 volumes I have seen multiple times. He's referring to this, that Gandhi is according to Sri Aurobindo, I'm paraphrasing him. He calls Gandhi as a Russian Christian. Inside a Hindu husk, it's a Russian Orthodox Christian. That too of Tolstoy style. So that could be a case as well. So we can maybe read Tolstoy actually to know why Gandhi was like that.
War and
That.
peace.
Hmm. Quite an interesting thing, actually. Yeah, Shastri, you go ahead. Say something. You were saying
No, I mean, does that mean we have to read War and Peace? But yeah, I think you should.
No, 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 no. We don't need to. Actually, we have a much more finer book, Letters to a Hindu. It's a whole converse like multiple letters to Gandhi by Tolstoy. It's a compilation of that whole letters. There is a book, so we can actually read that to know all of this.
Interesting. Interesting.
Mm.
Interesting.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, but I have final question before we drop for today. Is that do you think a deracinated Hindu mind, where it doesn't have the Swayambodh or the Shatrubodh, is kind of a requirement in today's time, so that we do not become what Gandhi had become in 1930s? Shastri. Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think like people are not as naive as they were back then. Um,
Hmm.
like uh, there's a little bit more critical thinking today than there is back then.
Hmm.
Um, I would definitely say I think my great grandpa's generation were way smarter than my grandpa's,
Hmm.
and my father's generation was like a little bit dumber than my grandpa. But I feel like we've become smarter than our previous generations.
Okay. Okay, understood. So yeah, but the correct. So like, in my opinion, correct. See, most people would be actually would fall for this. Okay, that is no question about it. People like us who are generally do not trust anybody or would be very critical of things which come our way, will evaluate things. But that luxury is given to everybody. So they would not have the time or the to actually go and read and understand what's going on. For that purpose, I think a general guideline on like who you are as an identity, and whom you should be wary of, okay, as somebody that, or ideas that you should not indulge in. That's these two things which would equip the 80% and 90% people who do not have the time or the energy or the intellect to actually do this research. So I think that is something which the Hindu society needs badly, and that should be actually disseminated across the board from media to everything, so that even the dumbest Hindu person would know that who he is, because Hinduism is so vast and so diverse, it is literally impossible to define it in so many ways. And then then the parasite would come and hijack it with their own logic.
I kind of look at it slightly differently, right? It's not that we know who we are. Uh, it's not like the world has become way more pro-Hindu or even more neutral to Hindus than it was 10 years ago. Like it's more like they tolerate us, but they still hate us, right? And you sort of cannot escape your like skin color, to be honest. So that reminder will constantly come back, like, oh, like let me put it this way, right? You can be uh you can you can speak like a white man in the US. You can speak like anybody in the US. But at the end of the day, they'll look at your skin color, they'll still say you're Indian, you're Hindu. So in a lot of ways you can't escape your Hindu identity. That's one thing. But the other thing is that I think there will be, at least this is my experience, is that there'll be a moment where you will run back to your own you'll embrace your own identity, because whether you do it because people um, like you do it because people keep on pushing that on you, or because there's some sense of pride in there, is a personal matter, but you'll do that, right, eventually. And what we need to be is that we need to be embracing of those kinds of folks. You might find farmer socialists say that, oh, what I did was wrong, and you need to take a bit. Uh, and that's what we need. We need to like sustain their path towards like staying within the fold.
So, okay, so in that case, correct, you would be not so critical of Muslim Morcha. You know what I mean? There are a
Um,
lot of people who are skeptical of Muslim Morcha.
oh, you mean domestically in India?
Yeah, yeah, domestically in India. See, if you're talking about leftists and liberals who are in India or even outside, okay. So there's a sizable chunk of leftist, liberal, and other people who may now sympathize with the Hindu cause, and now how do we incorporate them into the overall Hindu society? Correct. And you are saying that okay, we should be far more sympathetic to them in their the way we treat them. Like if they say okay, I was a kind of a liberal, a lefty, now I am not. How do we incorporate them in so many ways? Other people groups who also want to come and integrate into Hindu society. So how we deal with them?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of ways you could do that, right? Like one thing is that you can make them introspect themselves, right? So a good way to think about it is like, why are you following Marx? What is the principle that makes you follow Marx? Right? Somebody would say, "Oh no, he advocated for equality." Right? Okay, fine. Then that's the principle. Then you should apply, not Marx. Right? So, I mean, you can argue that in many different ways, and ultimately, you need to boil people down to what principles makes them tick, and then say that you could obviously do that within Hinduism, and then you can guide them to our own shastras, text, etc., etc. But you need to be open for that. Um, Most of the time, we are very shuddhi kind of people, right? Like, oh, एक बार मांस खा लिया वो forever वो tainted है, वो mentality कम करना चाहिए.
Yeah, just one question on this. So, this Shuddhi mentality, was it a prevalent, like in the ancient India, or it kind of developed when we suffered invasions? See, because what will happen that when you feel that you are being threatened, you will create a boundaries around you to safeguard your own identity, and that time all these things would come about because to protect that identity. So was it available? What is there previous in the ancient times in the Gupta period, or it was a later invention, or later it came about?
I think it it's sort of I put it. I think I would say that it came and went, right? Like I don't think it persisted that long, but it definitely did intensify under the British. Because if you look at, say, the Vijayanagar Empire, the
Hmm.
founders of the Vijayanagar empires were Muslims.
Hmm.
I mean, they were Muslims.
Hmm.
They were converted. I mean,
Hmm.
or they got converted back to Hinduism.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So it's तब कहाँ शुद्धि था?
That was my pretext, because whatever I have read, that these protectionist uh, traits a community will gather and will enforce if they feel they are threatened culturally, religiously, or otherwise, to actually protect whatever hinterland they have. They need to protect it. So these, like a lot of what is this superstitious bad behavior, or stupid behavior, would have been accentuated over a thousand-year invasions, and that created a kind of a like a bad loop which went on and on. Yeah.
I don't think it was a loop. Um, so let me give you an interesting example, right? And this is from the South. Um, so when the British came in 17 something something, They captured Chennai, and they captured like neighboring areas, Tanjavur and etc. etc. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so by the early 1800s, you already had HRC in place, um, and the British slowly started taking control over temples. So there was a obviously there was a faction that resisted British um, administration, and the British definitely want, and there was definitely a faction that saw its chance to basically say that, oh, these guys have been administering the temple for ages. Now it's our turn. And here's the thing: big temples are also big institutions, and they have a lot of people in them. So there's obvious factionalism within them as well, right? And you also had Christian missionaries at that point in time pressuring the British government to make it easier for them to start converting people. Now you have to realize one thing is that the British were not into conversions. They were not like Spanish colonizers or Portuguese
Portuguese. Portuguese.
colonizers. They ran it like a company. Basically, it was like money in, profits out, right? For them, it was all about keeping it as stable as possible and extracting as much wealth as possible, right? And then they said with poverty we can then slowly we can change the entire civilization, whatever, right? That was the entire plan. So they weren't interested in missionary stuff, but evangelism and all that. But they would throw a bone because they were sort of like, okay, fine, I don't want you guys in my purview at all. Here, I'll throw you a bone. So you would have these opportunities where the British administrators would replace um, one faction of the temple administration with another faction that was even way worse. So I suspect that might have happened, right? So they might have picked a extremely ultra orthodox person who kind of ticked all that boxes. Okay, this guy will satisfy even the missionary crowd. He'll give us access to temple revenues. He'll give us access to all the gold and wealth and everything else. And they put that guy in power.
Yes, yes. It a lot of makes sense. Okay, but you are absolutely right. That's correct. In a vast, diverse country like India, where you will have hardliners, softliners, people who don't believe in God, people who believe in God, people who believe in too many gods. So they would be happening. So, and see, in my opinion, correct, it's about Kalchakra. Okay, so the wheel of time moves. So you will go into a destruction mode, then you come back to a reconstruction mode. So somewhere down the line, we will be in a mode of reconstruction, and this is part of Kal Chakra. But yes, it does not mean that I should go and go on a holiday thinking that everything will be determined by somebody else. This is not how it functions. Even if we believe in, okay, time is something, Kal Chakra will move and I will do something, I do have to contribute mine. Okay, I cannot be thinking that okay, something will happen, God will do everything, I will go on a holiday in Thailand. That doesn't work. Okay, so we will have to do our work diligently as much as possible and let time do its job.
Dada,
Yes.
just for both of you,
Hmm.
you will love this. So I have got the
Hmm.
book in my hand right now. I will
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
now saying all of the words which were spoken by Rishi Aurobindo on Gandhi's this attitude of ahimsa and so on. So Shastriji, maybe he can he can listen to this and maybe comment on this, both of you. So I'm gonna read it. Dada, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. So this is from the book Conversations with Rishi Aurobindo, date 23rd June 1926, evening. So the disciple asks him, quote, disciple, People regard Gandhi as a greatly spiritual man, Sri Aurobindo. That is a mistake. Gandhi is moral, not spiritual. He has a strong moral will. When it is said that Gandhi is a greater Christian than many a European, that statement is perfectly true. Gandhi is a Christian. He has been influenced more by the Bible and Tolstoy than by the Bhagavad Gita, and he interprets the Gita in that light. He is really a European under an Indian skin. The disciple asks, what is European in him? Sri Aurobindo says, he has everything European. His moral ideas, religious ideas, they are all Europeans, especially of the Russian type. The cult of suffering preached by Gandhi is taken directly from the Russian Orthodox. This is a teaching of Christianity, but only the Russian masses have accepted this teaching in their life. End quote. So maybe both of you can comment. Oh, acha. Maybe Dada, you
Yeah.
can comment on it.
Yes. Yes, actually, like this reading has actually given us a lot of new talking points, new points and directions on. Correct. So we are trying to find out that Shastri mentioned that this parasitic empathy, which actually engulfs their mind, hijacks the mind of the people, and where it comes from, how it is that. So your insights into the philosophy of Jain philosophy of non-violence, and this I am a very good human being kind of a stand of Jesus, that you like if someone slaps you, you give one more, that you also give the other cheek to the person to slap you. So correct.
Yeah,
So
yeah, true.
we can yeah, so we can actually find out that whatever Gandhi taught, whatever Gandhi spoke about in terms of moral and values, where they came from. So this session that we are talking together, we got to know so many things, new things, that where it came from, and how. But I'll finish with one specific thing, one last point which I wanted to make. See, sitting outside, sitting outside. Okay, I am not a politician. You are not a politician. You will not you will not get to understand, okay, how a political person, okay, a political personality and a political party functions. Okay, so I do not think that the stand took by Patel and other Congress members to actually support Nehru, in my opinion, they would have revolted and created a new Congress. That would have been the best thing for India. If Nehru
True.
was doing something which was bad, then if they had revolted and give and put pressure on Nehru, then Nehru may have actually changed his decision, or else it would break the Congress. But it did not happen. But understand why it did not happen. Any political party, you will have multiple factions which will be having their own kind of agenda. They will be running. Okay. At that time, by whatever means, Nehru was able to manipulate people, use the British, use Gandhi, whoever, to actually get his agenda on the table and get it passed. So this political
True.
struggle actually goes on in every political party, and large party it will happen. Okay, so I am no way supporting that. Okay, what happened to all the leaders, all the leaders who had their best things for Hindus. But end of the day, it is politics is about compromise. Okay, but if the politician doesn't have the right kind of red lines when they do make compromises, then the problem will occur. If like Subhash Chandra Bose or Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, they had a red line that if you cross this, I am not going to be with you. But most politicians or many people will not have that red line. They will flip flop the red line, because end of the day they also want to see their own political future being in Congress. Because correct, if
True.
they are in a political party, which is an established party. Now they are going to get independence. Now, how would a politician take the chance, a risk of
mm,
forming a new party or
mm,
opposing it?
mm. Yeah, he would like throw away the chance which has dropped on his hands. Like he has the power right now to enjoy, and why would he throw that away by doing
Yes.
that decision?
So
Yes.
yes, and correct, and it was not like correct that Nehru was saying, okay, I will do some radical things. He was doing some radical things, okay, but
Yeah.
it was
Later on,
something,
of course.
yeah, it happened. Correct, a lot of things happened,
Yeah.
but that time
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
boat has already sailed. The boat's already sailed. You can't do anything about it. See,
Mm-hmm.
it is not about justifying what happened. It is about understanding the process how it happened, so that next time when you observe the same thing, you know what could have happened.
True. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely, Dada.
So
This
this
is
is
the case.
something which is, yeah. So we all common people have to have that little bit of understanding, this understanding of how politics works, so that even when we go to vote, okay, we will be able to have some understanding of whom we should vote. End of the day,
Mm,
another we
mm,
can't change the system, so we have to learn little bit more of politics and try to understand the political behavior of politicians, okay, how
mm.
to gauge their political understanding and understand what they want to do, what they stand for, and then vote for a politician. That makes much more sense currently than throwing
Dada.
left and right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dada, so to bolster your point, something came to my mind actually,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
just now. So you
Mm.
know Chandrachud Ghosh ji, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Another
yes. I know, I
friend,
know, I know, I know.
biographer.
Mm,
Yes, yes.
mm,
So he once, I think, said this that like Netaji or Subhash Chandra, like Netaji or Shama Prasad Mukherjee, they
mm,
had this individual charisma. Like
mm,
they could gather votes, like popular votes. They were like populists. So they had their own charm, and they
mm,
didn't need to depend on Gandhi's mysticism, to quote, to get votes for themselves. So he said, I think he said this, if I'm not wrong. So
mm,
he said this that Sardar Patel, all of them, like those who were in with Gandhi all the time, they didn't have the guts to like get away from Congress and create a new Congress, because they were like accustomed to like being supported because they were under the mysticism of Gandhi. Always they like banked on it, and they didn't build their own like individual capacity to like be the national leaders or like be famous as Netaji or Shama Prasad Mukherjee was. What would you say to this?
yes,
If I'm
yes.
wrong, please correct me.
No, 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 no. You are absolutely right in that way. See, normally you will have 10% of people or 5% people who have the capability, capacity, and charisma to actually become leaders and become popular leaders. Okay,
Hmm.
most others would be under their umbrella. So you have Modi, you have Yogi. Okay,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
BJP has n number of leaders. Okay,
Yeah,
so
true.
BJP has n number of leaders. BJP is the largest political party on this earth. Okay,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
record.
yeah. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep,
okay.
record.
Now,
True, true.
largest political organization in the world, but they have only
Hmm.
one Modi, and now they have one Yogi ji.
Yeah,
So
right.
others would be actually living under the umbrella of these leaders, these towering figures.
Hmm.
If those
Hmm.
towering figures get compromised, then you have a problem, and that's what happened with when we were getting independence. If these
True, true,
towering
true, true.
figures get compromised, or the towering figures are not taking right decisions, then we will see what
Hmm.
happens.
Absolutely, absolutely, Dada. So
Hmm.
this like Chandrachud Ghoshji like mentions this in saying how like Sardar Patel, even though he did not agree to Gandhi, he at
Hmm.
the end like buckled his knees, like okay, I will accept it. Uh,
Yeah,
कुछ भी हो.
see, doing compromise is the daily task of a politician. They are doing compromise every day. Okay, for them it's not a
Hmm.
big thing. The only thing is that Subhash Chandra Bose had then
Hmm.
he knew the red line, and he said, "No, I will not do
Yeah,
it. I will do it my own." But everybody
yeah,
will not have that courage.
and he could also achieve it. Like he showed it in the famous election, right, against
Hmm.
Pattabhi
Hmm.
Sitaramaiah. Like he won the election by winning against Gandhi. So he
Exactly.
showed it that he had the capacity. So yeah, which is why he could stand more on his principles, unlike I guess Sardar Patel ji, who didn't, who like
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
who like was so frustrated, like to quote Prakharji mentions this in one of his videos, like
Hmm.
Sardar Patel said, like aap to Gandhi ji, like aap मतलब हिंदू, in the context of Hindu Samaj, like आप
Hmm.
उनके मुंह पर कालिख पोतना चाहते हो, like he was so angry upon him after the, like the treatment which Gandhiji gave to the refugees who came from Pakistan, the Hindu refugees. So he was so angry about it, but he couldn't do anything because, as you said, compromise.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I think we are done for today. So thank you, Rishi. Thank you, audience, for your chats, for your questions. Uh, do read this book. It's available free of cost on Archive or any other platform. It's a very good book. A little bit difficult, but take a dictionary and read it if you can. If you can, and if you want, if other wants to help us, do subscribe to our channel. Okay, so that we can get more subscribers. More subscribers will be able to get more academics and other people who would be able to give a commentary on these books and events. We will be able to invite them. So do subscribe to our channel and support us so that we can have more such discussions, not with audience and as well as with the academics and authors who would like to invite in our channel. So thank you, Rishi. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
audience. Thank
Thank you,
you,
Dada.
Shastri ji, everybody. And Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.
Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.